Hello everyone, my name is Harold Campos. I'm a PM for Azure Integration Services, and today I will present another episode of our mission critical series, We Speak, where we emphasize on particular and commonly used technologies in enterprise mission critical environments with Azure Logic Apps. The topic for today's session is IBM CICS. What is the IBM Customer Information Control System, or CICS? IBM CICS started as a free terminal manager in 1968. Later, it became the IBM transaction processing software that primarily runs on IBM mainframes under ZOS. At the right side, you're going to see the high level architecture of CICS. It has a transaction server runtime that includes application services, business logic applications, and foundation services, and these support application development and system management activities. Now, the question is, why is it important to interact with CICS? Because it is everywhere where there are mission critical systems. For instance, banks, insurance, government, and many other industries. CICS is fast, reliable, and has access to tons of legacy data. For customers looking to partially modernize their mainframes, they can decide to leave CICS to manage core data operations or even use CICS transactions to support their hybrid integration strategies. Now, this is where it gets interesting. We have multiple ways to interact with CICS systems. I will expand a bit on the alternatives so you can decide how to integrate. Here I am depicting the Azure Logic Apps connector in an Azure Logic Apps workflow in our cloud, the Azure cloud, that is on the right side. Our connector is currently in preview, so if you are interested in using it, leveraging it, let me know. You can send me an email, connect with me. I'll leave some information in this video. And it's capable to interact with CICS systems running on mainframes via HTTP or TCP/IP. On the left side, we have a mainframe. This mainframe provides custom. In the mainframe, we have custom listeners for TCP/IP or direct integration for HTTP listeners in CICS. I will elaborate on those alternatives later. So how does it work? Our IBM CICS Azure Integration Technologies, as I mentioned, provide multiple mechanisms to interact with CICS programs. We can do it via TCP/IP or via HTTP. If you need APPC support, then we provide access to CICS transactions using LU 6.2, which is available only in Host Integration Server. Now, something important to mention is that one prerequisite for doing the work of integrating with CICS is that you have to create what we call a host integration designer XML file that basically provides the necessary metadata for the CICS program to be understood. Okay, so I am including here a few pictures on how to do this, right? You have to create a new project in Visual Studio. You have to set up, include support for flat file processor on Logic Apps. And then you create a client definition, and then you will continue creating a program that will allow you to reflect the definition that you have on the host, on the program on the host. Okay, so I'll go back to let me show you. Where is this? So this is a sample project, right? So you're gonna create a new project here, new project, and then you're going to look for host integration, and then in host integration it will appear what we have. Host integration. Let me do this. The host application project, which is the one that I have here. And in the host application project, you are going to create um, a new client definition. So when you are in the project, you create this definition, and this definition will allow you to create these HIDX files. Now let's go back to the presentation where I'll show you some additional information before creating your project. For one to be able to create a project to integrate with CICS systems using our technologies, you have to determine what programming model to use. A programming model determines the method used to access and integrate with the applications and configuration requirements depending on the specific solution goals that you have. Integrating with mainframes may require modification to existing mainframe programs to be able to fit the programming model that you have. Sometimes, other times, you don't have to change anything, right? Because it may be, I mean, changes may be necessary if a mainframe program does not expect a single request reply response, or a CICS program has a terminal processing logic embedded in the same program with the business logic. In other words, you have screens and business logic all together, right? So then you can use one or the other, right, but not necessarily all together. Some other factors that has a weight on deciding which programming model are the network protocol, the maximum size of the message or data that can be sent to the host, whether you need to use two-phase commit or not, whether you have to write your own communication protocols to support a link program, or whether you want the server to have the ability to maintain the client to server context. That's what we call persistent connections. In this table, I'm summarizing the programming models that are supported by our connector, the CICS connector in Logic Apps. We have, as I said, TCP/IP and HTTP mechanisms, and in this, in each, when you go to TCP/IP, you'll find that there are two words here: link and user data. A link leverages the COM area, which is a section that is specialized for transferring data between mainframe applications. The great thing about this is that it's like a data dictionary, right? So you have elements, you have a structure where you can use to pass information back and forth. The only challenge with dealing with the COM area is that it has a limit of 32 kilobytes, right? So this is great for small, light transactions, but if you wanted to exchange more data, so then you have to use a different model. That is the model that we call user data, where you don't really have a limit you don't have a max message or data size, right? It's really unlimited. And the same applies with the HTTP model. Now, the question will be, why will I choose one over the other? So this is a choice that will depend on how the mainframe programs were coded, right? Sometimes it's more efficient to integrate, with a smaller data sizes, and it's set up that way. And some other times you have HTTP or CICS web services you can interact with, right? In many of those cases, you'll have to work with the mainframe specialist to determine what's the best alternative to integrate that will suit your scenario. Something important to mention is that, why do I need a CICS connector to interact with HTTP web services in CICS, right? So if there are web services, I can just call them. It is true, you can use other alternatives to call CICS web services in the mainframe. Um, the, the the challenge might be that you will have to create your own structures, and you have to deal with the data conversions and redefines and everything if the web service has a complex structure to deal with for receiving parameters and returning a response. We do that for you with the HIDX file. We abstract that complexity, so then you just need to have that definition in the logic apps, so then you don't have to deal with the conversion, and also all of the nuisances of dealing with mimicking COM area data alike. Okay, what you see on the right side are definitions that we use when we create these projects using a Visual Studio, right, for the definition of the HIDX. And then these are the models, as I said, they are supported in our connector. The complete reference of these programming models is available in this link. Okay, so and it includes also programming models available for host integration server, which is our server product that has more alternatives for connecting to um, to a mainframe. Now, how does it work? Once you have the host definitions available as COBOL copybooks, then you can import them as methods, right? So, and sometimes I get asked, so what is a copybook? What is a COBOL definition? So it's like it's a program that will define what are the parameters and what is the return that your program have, right? So is it the whole program? Not necessarily, right? It's just the representation of what is going to be passed and returned from the host. You don't have to specify the whole program. In this particular case, for this example, yeah, I am moving just some data to account balance, which is this parameter that I have here, right? But something important to mention is that if I change this value here, you will still see the same amount, because this is just what I'm the way how I'm using this copybook is just to get the structure out of it. The program that exists in the host has this hard coded, right? So it doesn't really matter what I change here. I will always get the same amount because it's something that is coming directly from the host, and you will see that in a few minutes. And the other thing is that you have the ability to, with one HIDX file, to have different methods. So each copy, if you have two copybooks, these two copybooks can be imported to different methods. Like for instance, this one is the one that gets the balance, get balance method, and this one is the one that gets accounts, right? So then this one will go here, right, to get accounts, and then you will see in the structures part, whatever you have defines, or where you have a structure specifics to what you need to return or read, then they will be created here. So all of this work, all of this complexity is abstracted for you, right? So we deal with it, so you don't have to do coding on this, right? So if you were to be doing custom code, you will have to deal with all of this, and this is very error prone because I'm showing fairly simple copybooks, but the fact of the matter is that you can be dealing with 100 input parameters and complex arrays that are returned by your COBOL programs or BL1 programs converted to COBOL, right? So that becomes very challenging when you are doing um, some coding. But that's the way how we do it. Now, something additional. How do I set it up? Once you create the Logic Apps workflow, you can add the CICS in-app connector. It will load automatically the HIDX files available in the Logic App. And to set up the IBM CICS connector, you definitely need inputs from the mainframe specialist, unless you have a fairly basic configuration. You will require at least the mainframe IP, or you need VNet integration for sure, right, to protect your the access to your data center or where the mainframe system is. You need a port that is listening to CICS requests, and you need to select a programming model, which in this case is the ELM link. A TCP/IP link uses COM areas, and some mainframe systems will require RACAF authentication. RACAF is the Resource Access Control Facility from IBM, and for those of you who need to specify credentials to it, right? So you have username, you have password, right, and then you have the option to use certificates and additional headers if you need. And now, with what I do, I'm going to go to show you how does it look like. Okay. Yeah, I created a Logic app here. I mean, I call it IMS Connect because I did it for the IMS session. But I have workflows for CICS and for IMS now. So let me go to my CICS workflow, CICS integration workflow. It's called CICS test, CICS test. And before getting there, I just wanted to quickly remind you that you have to set up the VNet integration, right? So in this case, this Logic app is using the VNet integration, so we have so we can access the mainframe, right? So you have to make sure that you have the right networking in place before getting into creating your own workflow. Okay, so then so in this workflow, which is a very simple one, what I have is you have three steps, the same, very similar as the IMS one that I did last time for the IMS video. I'm just receiving an HTTP request here, and then I added the CICS program action, right? So I'll write here CICS, and then I'll have the CICS program call. Let's remember that this is in preview, right? So if you need it, just let us know, and then we'll help you enable your Logic app with this connector, right? And then if I go to properties here, you will see that I have here the banking CICS ELM link HIDX, which is the HIDX that I created here, right? So this HIDX that I see here in this, let me go to get balance description. So if I save this, you will see that I would save an HIDX file. And this HIDX file that is generated in this program is the one that gets uploaded into, that I will upload to the map section on the Logic app. So let me duplicate this tab. I'll show you real quick where that is. If I go to the Logic app properties, overview, too long. If I go to the Logic app, then you will see that under artifacts, I have in maps, I have uploaded this HIDX file, right? And that HIDX file that has the definition of the mainframe program that I'm going to interact with, it's going to be used here in the workflow, from the workflow. So here to CICS test, you have that this HIDX file will be available, and then once I choose this one, then it's going to ask me for a method, right? In this case, get balance, and then I'm passing these parameter key makers and then input parameters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And see why it's taking too long. Okay, so there is the file. You can upload any other HIDX files, right? And then I'm passing the parameters here, and then I'm posting a message into my team's channel. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how that happens. And so let me discard the changes, just and I'll run it. Review. So if I go here, run story, it's running. So what does it mean? Let me open my Teams. Fresh. So it said that it succeeded, and you'll see that in my Teams now I have a response right now, 12:51, that this workflow was completed, right? So if I run it again, then what I'm expecting is to have another entry in this channel, right, which is the one that just appeared. So it means that the workflow uh, got started, and with this HTTP request, I called the CICS program, and then I received the message from the um, in Teams. Okay, so that was it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please just send me an email, hcampus@microsoft.com, post and my Twitter account, anything at hcampusu, or in LinkedIn, or directly in YouTube. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you listening to this episode. Bye for now.